There's something uniquely unsettling about a stranger. We pass them every day on sidewalks, in stores, at gas stations, and in the background of our lives. Most of the time, they're just that, background noise, faces we'll never see again. But sometimes, a stranger steps out of the blur and into the center of your story. Sometimes, that encounter is so chilling, so inexplicable, that it never really leaves you. Tonight, I'm sharing 4 true stories of terrifying encounters with strangers, moments that still haunt the people who lived through them. These aren't urban legends or campfire tales. These are real experiences submitted by real people, and they might just make you look twice at the next unfamiliar face you see. This happened to me when I was 19, just a few years ago, but I still think about it every time I walk to my car at night. I was working late at a small bookstore in my hometown, a place that always felt safe. The kind of place where you know everyone by name, where the biggest drama is someone returning a book a week late. That night, I was the last one out. I locked up, double-checked the doors, and started across the empty parking lot toward my car. It was one of those nights where the air feels heavy, like a storm is coming, but the sky was clear. I remember thinking how quiet it was. No cars, no voices, just the sound of my own footsteps. About halfway to my car, I noticed a man standing under one of the streetlights. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there, hands in his pockets, staring at the ground. I tried not to make eye contact, but I could feel his attention shift to me as I got closer. I picked up my pace, keys clutched between my fingers, the way my mom always told me to do. As I passed him, he looked up. His face was blank, almost bored, but his eyes followed me. I could feel them on my back as I reached my car. I unlocked the door, got in, and immediately locked it behind me. I started the engine, but before I could pull out, I saw him in my rearview mirror. He was walking toward my car, slowly, like he had all the time in the world. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. I put the car in reverse, but he stopped a few feet from my bumper and just stood there, staring at me. I didn't know what to do. Furthermore, I didn't want to run him over, but I also wasn't about to get out and ask him to move. He just stood there, staring, for what felt like forever. Then, without warning, he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile you see in nightmares. Wide with too many teeth, like he was enjoying some private joke. He raised his hand and waved, slow and deliberate, never breaking eye contact. Then he turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows at the edge of the lot. I drove home shaking, checking my mirrors the whole way. I never saw him again, but for weeks after, I had nightmares about that smile. Likewise, I started carrying pepper spray everywhere, and I never, ever walk to my car alone at night if I can help it. Likewise, I still don't know what he wanted or why he picked me, but I know I'll never forget his face. This story comes from a friend of mine, someone who's always been skeptical of anything creepy or paranormal. She's the type to roll her eyes at ghost stories and laugh at horror movies. But after this, she told me she'll never look at strangers the same way again. She was riding the city bus home from work, something she'd done 100 times before. It was late, maybe 10:30 at night, and the bus was almost empty, just her, the driver, and a woman sitting a few rows ahead. The woman was dressed in a long, old-fashioned coat, the kind you don't see much anymore, and she was staring out the window, unmoving. At first, my friend didn't think much of it. People keep to themselves on public transit. But as the bus made its stops, she noticed something odd. The woman never moved. She didn't shift in her seat, didn't check her phone, and didn't even blink, as far as my friend could tell. Stop after stop, people got on and off, but the woman stayed exactly where she was, staring out into the darkness. My friend started to feel uneasy. She tried to focus on her own phone, but she kept glancing up, drawn to the woman's stillness. Finally, it was just the two of them left. The bus was heading into the quieter part of town, and my friend was starting to regret not getting off earlier. She texted me, half joking, "If I disappear, it's the woman in the coat." As the bus neared her stop, my friend stood up and pulled the cord. The woman didn't react. The bus stopped, the doors hissed open, and my friend hurried off, glancing back over her shoulder. The woman was still there, still staring out the window, but as the bus pulled away, my friend saw her head turn, slowly, to watch her through the glass. Their eyes met for just a second, but my friend swears she felt something cold run through her. She ran the rest of the way home, heart pounding, and locked the door behind her. She never saw the woman again, but for weeks after, she had the same nightmare, riding the bus, alone, with the woman in the coat sitting silently, always watching, always waiting. This next story comes from a guy named Alex, who grew up in a small town surrounded by dense forests and winding trails. He's always been an outdoorsy type, hiking, camping, fishing, you name it. The woods were his second home, a place he felt completely at ease. That all changed one summer evening, and to this day, he says he can't walk a trail alone without thinking about what happened. It was late July, and Alex had decided to take his dog, Murphy, for a walk on one of the less traveled trails near his house. The sun was setting, painting the sky in streaks of orange and purple, and the air was thick with the smell of pine and earth. He'd walked this trail dozens of times, knew every twist and turn, every fallen log and overgrown patch. Murphy was off-leash, bounding ahead, nose to the ground, tail wagging. About a mile in, Alex noticed something strange. The woods were quieter than usual. No birds, no insects, just the crunch of his boots and the distant jingle of Murphy's collar. He shrugged it off at first, chalking it up to the time of day, but the silence started to feel oppressive, like the trees themselves were holding their breath. That's when he saw the man. He was standing just off the trail, half hidden behind a tree. At first, Alex thought he was imagining things, a trick of the fading light. But as he got closer, he realized it was definitely a person. The man was tall, thin, wearing a dirty gray hoodie and jeans that looked a size too big. He wasn't moving, just standing there, watching. Alex stopped in his tracks. Murphy, usually fearless, had frozen too, hackles raised, a low growl rumbling in his chest. The man didn't say anything. He didn't even blink. He just stared, his face shadowed by the hood. "Hey, are you okay?" Alex called out, trying to sound casual, but his voice came out shaky. The man didn't respond. He just kept staring, his head tilted slightly to one side, like he was studying Alex. Something about the way he stood, so still, so silent, set off every alarm in Alex's body. He took a step back, calling Murphy to his side. The dog didn't need to be told twice. As they turned to leave, Alex glanced over his shoulder. The man had stepped onto the trail, following at a slow, deliberate pace. Alex didn't run, not at first. He didn't want to seem scared, didn't want to provoke the guy. But the footsteps behind him grew louder, faster. He picked up his pace, heart hammering in his chest, and Murphy pressed close to his leg. The man was gaining on them, his footsteps crunching through the underbrush. That's when Alex broke into a run. He sprinted down the trail, branches whipping at his face, Murphy barking wildly. He didn't look back, didn't stop until he burst out of the woods and into the open field near his house. Only then did he dare to glance behind him. The man was gone. Alex never saw him again, but for weeks after, he found strange things on the trail: cigarette butts, empty cans, and a torn piece of gray fabric snagged on a branch. He started carrying a knife whenever he went hiking, and he never walked that trail alone again. Sometimes, late at night, he swears he hears footsteps outside his window, crunching through the leaves, stopping just short of the porch. He doesn't know who the man was or what he wanted, but he knows he was being hunted, and that feeling, the cold, animal certainty of being prey, still haunts him every time he steps into the woods. This last story comes from a woman named Rachel who was traveling for work a few years ago. She'd always loved the independence of business trips, new cities, new faces, the thrill of being somewhere no one knows your name. But after this, she says she'll never stay in a hotel alone again. Rachel had flown into a mid-sized city for a conference, checked into a nice hotel downtown, and spent the day networking and attending panels. By the time she got back to her room, she was exhausted. She ordered room service, took a long shower, and settled into bed with a book. The city lights glowed outside her window, and for a while, everything felt perfectly normal. Around midnight, she was drifting off to sleep when she heard a soft knock at the door. At first, she thought she'd imagined it, but then it came again, 3 slow, deliberate knocks. She sat up, heart pounding, and checked the peephole. No one was there. She waited, listening, but the hallway was silent. She tried to shake it off, telling herself it was probably just a mistake, someone at the wrong door, maybe a drunk guest. Furthermore, she turned off the light and tried to go back to sleep. A few minutes later, she heard it again. This time, it was louder, more insistent. 3 knocks, then silence. She got up, checked the peephole again. Still nothing. She called the front desk, her voice barely above a whisper, and asked if anyone had been sent to her room. The clerk said no and offered to send up security. Rachel declined, feeling embarrassed, like she was overreacting. She tried to sleep, but every time she closed her eyes, she heard footsteps in the hallway, soft and shuffling, stopping just outside her door. At one point, she heard the handle jiggle, as if someone was trying to open it. She sat up in bed, clutching her phone, ready to call for help. Eventually, the noises stopped. Rachel stayed awake until dawn, every muscle tense, listening for any sign of movement. When the sun finally rose, she packed her bags and checked out, cutting her trip short. A few days later, she got a call from the hotel manager. They'd reviewed the security footage after another guest reported a similar incident. The cameras showed a man in a dark hoodie wandering the halls late at night, stopping at random doors, knocking, and trying the handles. He was never caught. Rachel still has nightmares about that night. The sound of those slow, deliberate knocks, the feeling of being watched, hunted, even in the safety of a locked hotel room. She says she'll never travel alone again, and she always checks the locks twice before going to sleep. Some stories end with a clear answer, a villain unmasked, or a lesson learned. But the most haunting encounters are the ones that leave you with questions about the world, about the people around you, and about yourself. What if you'd acted differently? What if you'd ignored that gut feeling or trusted the wrong person? What could occur if the stranger you met was never really a stranger at all? These are the thoughts that keep people up at night, long after the danger has passed. After hearing these 4 stories, you might be wondering what connects them. On the surface, they're just random, isolated incidents. For people, for strangers, for moments of fear. But if you look closer, you'll see a pattern. The ordinary turns sinister, the familiar made strange. It's not the monsters under the bed or the ghosts in the attic that haunt us most. It's the people we don't know, the ones who slip in and out of our lives in the blink of an eye, leaving us changed forever. Let's go back to the first story, the man in the parking lot. It's easy to dismiss something like that as a fluke, a weird guy with a creepy smile. But for the person who lived it, that moment never really ends. Every time she walks to her car, every time she feels eyes on her in a dark lot, she's right back there, heart pounding, keys clenched in her fist. She wonders if she did the right thing by getting in her car, by not confronting him, by not calling for help. She wonders if he's still out there, waiting for another chance encounter. The fear isn't just about what happened. It's about what could have happened and what might still happen someday. The second story, the woman on the bus, is a different kind of terror. It's the fear of the unknown, The unsettling feeling that something isn't quite right. My friend still rides the bus, still sees strangers every day, but she's never forgotten the way that woman looked at her through the glass. She wonders if it was all in her head, if she let her imagination get the best of her. But deep down, she knows what she felt, a cold, unblinking gaze that seemed to see right through her. Sometimes, the scariest encounters are the ones that don't make sense, the ones that leave you doubting your own memory, your own instincts. Alex's story, The Stranger in the Woods, is about vulnerability. The woods were his sanctuary, a place where he felt strong and free. But one encounter with a silent, stalking stranger changed all that. Now, every rustle in the underbrush, every snap of a twig, sends a jolt of fear through him. He's learned to trust his instincts, to listen to that primal voice that says, "Run." But he's also learned that safety is an illusion, that danger can find you anywhere, even in the places you love most. And then there's Rachel, alone in her hotel room, listening to the slow, deliberate knocks of a stranger who never showed his face. For her, the fear wasn't just about that night. It was about the realization that you can do everything right, take every precaution, and still find yourself at the mercy of someone else's intentions. She checked the locks, called the front desk, stayed alert. But sometimes, that's not enough. Sometimes, the only thing standing between you and danger is a thin strip of wood and metal, and the hope that it holds. What makes these stories so powerful isn't just the fear they inspire, it's the way they linger. The way they change the way you see the world. After an encounter like this, you start to notice things you never noticed before. The way someone lingers a little too long in a hallway. The way a stranger's eyes follow you across a room. The way a knock at the door can make your blood run cold. You become hyper-aware, always scanning for threats, always wondering if the next stranger you meet will be the one who changes everything. But there's another side to these stories, too, a side that's easy to overlook. Each of these people survived. They trusted their instincts, took action, and made it out alive. That's not always the case, and it's important to remember that. Sometimes, the only thing you can do is listen to that inner voice, the one that tells you something isn't right, and act on it. It might feel silly in the moment, but it could save your life. There's a kind of solidarity in sharing these stories, a reminder that we're not alone in our fears. Everyone has a story about a stranger who made them uneasy, a moment when the world felt suddenly dangerous. By talking about these experiences, by naming the fear, we take some of its power away. We remind ourselves, and each other, that it's okay to be cautious, to trust our instincts, and to put our safety first. Of course, not every stranger is a threat. Most people are just living their lives, caught up in their own worries and routines. But it only takes one encounter to change everything. That's why these stories matter, not just as warnings, but as reminders of the world's unpredictability, its capacity for both kindness and cruelty. As you listen to these stories, maybe you're thinking of your own encounter, a time when a stranger's words or actions left you shaken, a moment you still replay in your mind. Maybe you've never told anyone about it, or maybe you've tried to forget. But the truth is, these experiences shape us, whether we like it or not. They remind us that the world is bigger and stranger than we can ever fully understand. So, the next time you find yourself alone in a parking lot, or riding a late-night bus, or walking a quiet trail, remember these stories. Remember that fear is a survival tool, not a weakness. And remember that you're not alone. If you've made it this far, you might be feeling a little unsettled. Maybe you're glancing over your shoulder or thinking about the last time a stranger made you uncomfortable. That's the power of stories like these. They don't just entertain or frighten us. They remind us of the thin line between ordinary life and the unknown. They make us question how well we really know the world around us, and how quickly everything can change with a single encounter. But there's something else these stories do, something just as important. They remind us of our own resilience. Each person in these stories faced something terrifying, something that could have broken them. Instead, they found a way to keep going. They learned to trust themselves, to be more aware, and to take precautions they might have once thought unnecessary. They didn't let fear control their lives, even if it changed them. That's a lesson worth holding on to. Let's take a moment to imagine what it's like to live with these memories. For the woman in the parking lot, every late shift is a test of courage. She checks her surroundings, keeps her phone ready, and never takes her safety for granted. She's learned to trust her instincts, to listen to that quiet voice that says, something isn't right. It's not paranoia, it's survival. And while she wishes she could go back to feeling safe, she knows she's stronger now, more prepared for whatever might come. For my friend on the bus, the world feels a little less predictable. She still rides public transit, still moves through the city, but she's more alert now. She notices the people around her pay attention to the details. Furthermore, she's learned that sometimes the scariest things aren't the ones you can see, but the ones you can't explain. She's learned to trust her gut, even when it doesn't make sense. Oddly enough, that has made her more courageous. Alex, the hiker, still loves the woods. He still takes Murphy out on the trails, still finds peace in the quiet of the trees. But he's changed, too. He carries a knife, tells someone where he's going, and never ignores that prickling feeling at the back of his neck. He's learned that danger can find you anywhere, but so can courage. Furthermore, he refuses to let fear steal the things he loves, even if he's more careful now. And Rachel, the traveler, still goes on business trips. She still checks into hotels and still explores new cities. But she's never careless. She double-checks the locks, keeps her phone charged, and trusts her instincts without question. She's learned that safety isn't guaranteed, but that doesn't mean she has to live in fear. Not only that, but she's found a balance, cautious but not paralyzed. She's taken back some of the power that night tried to steal from her. Maybe you see yourself in one of these stories. Potentially, you've had your own encounter with a stranger that left you changed. If so, know that you're not alone. Fear is a natural response, a signal that something isn't right. It's not something to be ashamed of. In fact, it's often the thing that keeps us safe. The important thing is what you do with that fear, how you let it shape you, and how you move forward. If you ever find yourself in a situation that feels wrong, don't ignore it. Don't worry about seeming rude or overreacting. Your safety is more significant than someone else's opinion. Trust your instincts, set boundaries, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Most strangers are just that, strangers, with no interest in harming you. But if you ever meet the exception, you'll be glad you listened to that inner voice. And if you're someone who's never had an experience like this, consider yourself lucky. But don't let that luck make you careless. Stay aware. Look out for yourself and the people around you. Sometimes, just being present and alert is enough to deter someone with bad intentions. Sometimes, the smallest action, a locked door, a quick phone call, a decision to walk away, can make all the difference. As we come to the end of these stories, I want to leave you with one final thought. The world is full of strangers, and most of them will pass through your life without leaving a mark. But every once in a while, one will cross your path and change you, for better or worse. You can't control when or how that happens, but you can control how you respond. You can choose to be cautious, to be prepared, to be resilient. Furthermore, you can decide to share your story to help others feel less alone in their fear. So, the next time you find yourself face to face with a stranger, remember these stories. Remember that fear is not your enemy, it's your ally. It's the thing that keeps you safe, the thing that reminds you to pay attention, to trust yourself. And remember that you're stronger than you think. You've survived every scary moment so far, and you'll survive the next one, too. Thank you for listening to these 4 terrifying encounters with strangers that still haunt the victims. If you have a story of your own, don't be afraid to share it. You never know who might need to hear it, who might find comfort in knowing they're not alone. Stay safe, trust your instincts, and remember, sometimes the scariest stories are the ones that could happen to any of us. Thank you for listening to these 4 terrifying encounters with strangers that still haunt the victims. If you have a story of your own, don't be afraid to share it. You never know who might need to hear it, who might find comfort in knowing they're not alone. Stay safe, trust your instincts, and remember, sometimes the scariest stories are the ones that could happen to any of us. If you found these stories compelling, please consider subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications so you never miss a new episode. Your support helps us keep sharing real stories that matter.